All right, House of Hoops podcast, episode 1, rolling in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, folks. This is Stephen Hoops, and welcome to the House of Hoops podcast, our initial launch into the foray of the podcast environment. It's going to be an exciting time. You're going to get to know me, why you should even watch and listen to what I'm saying. Give a little background. We're going to talk about fun things, from cars to watches to shoes, to hot topics in the economy. What's happening today in the current economy? What do we see happening down the road? We're going to go through stuff such as, business aspects, entrepreneurship, how I've gotten to where I am today and how you can get there too. Some best tips, some best practices, and this in general. And hopefully, as things get rolling, we can start talking through questions you may have about the general environment out there of all of our different topics. We'll show you behind the scenes things, maybe go pick up a watch one day, or even go for a ride in a car or a truck or whatever really is going to be fun for you guys to actually see on a day-to-day basis. So we're excited to bring it to you, and welcome to the first episode. So starting off, me, who am I? Why am I here? Why should you listen to me? Why should you watch what we're doing? Again, Stephen Hoops. I have been working in the banking industry before I started my own business for about 25 years. I grew up in Southern Pennsylvania. Not really a lot to my name, not really a lot in the background, but figure out a way to, how do I make something of myself? How do I do what I want to do for a living? My mindset as a lot of younger people were, hyper focused on things that really was fun for me. How do I have fun and make a living at the same time? So naturally I was a sports fanatic, and I played baseball quite a bit, did it at a decently high level. So my thought process was I was going to go play baseball. So that's where I wanted to go to college, find a Division I baseball school that would look into me. So I decided on University of Delaware, and that's kind of how I started my career, figuring out how to pay for college while I was going to college. And then, unfortunately, like many people in the sports world, had some devastating knee injuries, had a lot of knee surgeries. My senior year of high school, I had one. Freshman year of college, had two. So from there, I had to kind of pivot and figure out what do I want to do with my life, which I think a lot of people do today, especially the younger generation. What you plan on setting out to do may not be what you end up doing in the long run. So I had to pivot pretty quickly and figure out what do I want to do with my life. And that's kind of where the story begins, is how did I get from there to here? And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of pain, a lot of hard work, a lot of effort, a lot of luck. If anybody tells you they got to where they were without luck, they're either, full of it or, I don't know. I think you have to be lucky to be successful in the long run, at least be in the right place at the right time. You hear a lot of people say the harder I practice, the harder I study, the luckier I get. And it's a true story. So what I decided to do, I was out of state college at University of Delaware. I had to find a job that would pay enough for me to pay for college. I decided on a local company that was a bank, MB&A America, that was willing to bring me on as an employee and let me go full time and pay for college completely. I started being a mechanical engineer. I was very math oriented, statistics, analytics, and a lot of that was really my core crux of what I love to do. So I decided to switch my major from mechanical engineering to business. And with that move, the bank allowed me to go full time, and allowed me to pay for college from the company itself. They paid 100% of college for me. As long as I got an A or a B, I couldn't slack off. So ironically, my GPA started to climb pretty heavily when you put a monetary factor on there where, annually, I think back then it was $25,000 a year where, if I don't get all A's and B's, I have to pay a part of that rather than the company. So it gave me a whole new appreciation for, working harder, studying, balancing my time, balancing work, balancing school, figuring out how to make it work in the long run. And it worked out really well. I actually got a full-time job in the analytic environment inside the bank as soon as I graduated. So actually the semester before, I had a couple classes to clean up to finish off. Took me 5.5 years with the major switch, as well as, not overburdening my work schedule and my school schedule. So it was really fun. It was really eventful, a learning experience, really built kind of who I am as a person today. I feel I can take on a lot of extra work. I can multitask, and it's a really enjoyable thing. So that's really what got me into the world. And then from there, it was just kind of a hyper takeoff. I went, graduated college and moved right into management within the bank, moved my way up. I moved from MBNA to Wells Fargo, where I was helped running and in charge of their risk management program here in a small auto business they bought here in Philadelphia. I was lucky enough to be asked to move to Florida to set up a brand new call center to do collections work, customer service, as you would with any bank. So I was able to go down to Florida, set up a new program down there, open up a new call center, hire everybody, get it up and running. I came back up to Philadelphia for a period of time, and then had the opportunity to move to Chicago. Moved to Chicago with Citibank as an opportunity when they purchased the Sears portfolio from Sears themselves to run that credit card business for Sears and Kmart. So I went in to run the risk management portion of that function, reporting to the CRO for that organization. And then from there, just kind of took off, found different jobs that I could do throughout time that interested me, that kind of filled in the blanks of, maybe what I hadn't done. I always look for that next job being something new, something I could learn, something different to kind of round out my background. I found a way to, move from that environment during the big economic crisis, 2008 to 2010. Moved over to do a lot of collections risk management, which kind of, a lot of boring stuff in the banking industry. Then I moved over to Citi Financial here in Baltimore. Worked there for a period of time, getting that business ready for sale. Then I moved to Barclays, where I was chief risk officer for Barclays U.S. businesses for the co-brand portfolios. And really, I was getting kind of burnt out. The economic crisis just kind of funneled through the U.S. The economic crisis in the U.K. and the EU was really getting heavy. And it was very burdensome. And, I never really had a break since sophomore year of college, working full-time and school full-time. So I decided I'm going to go ahead and try to find something new. I had a couple different job offers, 3 or 4 job offers. I really wasn't jumping at any of them, just because my head wasn't in the right space. And, one of the gentlemen who was making me an offer kind of saw that, and he's a mentor to this day, said to me, "Why don't you think about doing consulting?" And I said, "Well, it's not a bad idea. Give me a little time off." 3 of the 4 companies that made me offers, I asked if they'd be interested in consulting with me. 3 of the 4 said yes. So I resigned, moved away from my job at Barclays, took a month off, and then started doing consulting. The plan the whole time was do it for a year, maybe a little more, and then get back into the banking industry. And that was 2013. So here we are sitting in towards the last half of 2025 and still going strong. It really took off, really enjoyed it, got to work on different things at different times. I have a really good affinity and enjoyment of talking with people, helping them work out their problems, heavily on the analytics side, but also in the general business sense, the marketing aspect of things. And then in general, just entrepreneurship was really enjoyable once I figured it out and started to get there. There was a lot of hurdles I had along the way. I was very, very fortunate. My wife was extremely successful as an executive at a major bank. So I had time to actually figure out what I was doing along the way. I had a lot of good background in corporate America that I was able to leverage, and just figuring out how do I make this entrepreneurship work. We'll talk a lot more in depth about that in upcoming episodes, and maybe even later in this episode. But that's a big thing of kind of what helped me get to where I am today. And then the business just took off. It really took off. Started to get to the point where I needed just more than myself. Started bringing in more people, and then really 2016, early 2017, just really grew it and built it into a true corporation. Whereas today we're quite a large multi-million-dollar company. We do a lot of work with a lot of major players, from banking to sports companies, sports teams, all the way through the casino world, sports betting, which I'm sure we'll get into. That's one of the most fun things to do, almost not even work. That's almost like just a side thing that I just like to do as a hobby, but it's turned into a business. Also stuff we'll talk about on the entrepreneurship side. And then with success, you start thinking, where do you go to invest? How do you attract bigger clients, more affluent clients? So that really led me down the path of dressing the right way, accenting myself the right way, bringing myself the right way in the world. So, what am I driving? What type of watch am I wearing? What type of shoes am I wearing? Clothes, is my shirt like this one a Brooks Brothers shirt, or is it just a Kmart shirt? I have on, a pair of Jordans right now, Jordan 5s, the Carolina Blues. Those are certain things that I can adapt and say, who's my client? Who's my audience? If I'm going to North Carolina, Charlotte for a customer, might wear something different than I do if I'm going to Las Vegas or New York or Texas or California. So really learning how to make yourself that adjustable and that appetizing environment for someone to say, I can acclimate to this person, or I can relate to that person, and you can really be in that mindset. Now, there's other periods of time where we deal with a lot of startups and bootstrapping. So you might not want to go on the higher end and just be a little bit more down to earth. But I love just going out and doing the heavy lifting myself. To this day, I still work on projects with clients, even though we have a large organization. I just really love doing the work, not just running the business. So we'll get into a lot of that as well. But with that, it's exciting. We're going to be launching here, hopefully doing a monthly podcast, see how it goes, and go from there. But as you look at the videos, give us feedback. Go in the comments saying, you're too tight, you're too loose, get better at this. We want to hear about these topics. I'd love to see something like this, or let's talk about more on the entrepreneurship side or more on the economic side. You like to see more of the personal and the back end and the behind the scenes stuff. All of that is going to be based on feedback we get, what everybody sees is working and not working, and go from there. And, we can start off today by saying, what am I wearing today on my wrist? And it's a Breitling Super Avenger 2. So it's quite a good, starter watch for me. It was the very first, what I would call a premium watch, something that I spent more than $900 on. I want to say it was like a $3,000 watch, and I bought it after I made the decision to really acquire a couple smaller independent consulting firms and make a run out of it. My company name being Predictive Analytics Group, it really launched in that 2016-17 range, and this is something I bought at the end of 2017. It's still one of my most sentimental watches. Again, the first really good watch I bought, in my opinion, and what I love today. It's comfortable, it's useful. I can wear it in the pool. I can wear it to a social function, a sporting event. I can wear it if I'm playing golf. I can wear it here or there. It's a great watch, and one of the reasons I did it was, kind of memorializing getting to that success range of the environment that I wanted to be in, which was running my own business, working for myself, and helping others on a day-to-day basis. So that's an exciting thing that we'll talk more and more about. But I'm looking forward to making a go of this, talking to you guys more and more, getting some press for our company, Predictive Analytics Group, how they can help people out there in the industry. We do a lot of charity work. So if you're in the local Philadelphia area, reach out to us. Do a lot of work with different charities. We always like to touch on new ones here or there. We work, like I said, with a lot of sporting companies. So I have relationships with the Flyers, the Sixers, the Union, the Phillies. We have suites at each ones that we donate every year to charity, to allow people who are less fortunate than us to actually go to a game and enjoy something they may not be able to enjoy otherwise. So looking forward to hearing a lot of people there, feedback, or if you've been to one of those events or been with us, I'd love to hear from you as well. So welcome to the first episode of the House of Hoops podcast. So one of the things I talked about, that entrepreneurship thing, it's real and close to my heart. I don't think there's anything out there that people know from day one what they want to do, and that's what they end up doing. It happens, don't get me wrong, but you have to be willing to adapt. Find out, what really you need to do and what you're good at, what you're successful at. Figure out what you can make work as a long-term plan. I think a lot of kids go into college and even in high school where they require you to kind of pick a track along the way. You don't have to stick with it. From my perspective, I'm where I am today because of all the times I've failed, not just because of what I succeeded in, but failing over and over by trying things and figuring it out. You might try a couple different things and it doesn't work out. Well, you learned why it didn't work out, right? Figure that out and apply that to your next decision. Figure out how you're going to make things work down the road and what you're going to enjoy. So you don't have to stick to the plan.
right? The plan is great. But as Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. And that's what life does. Life will punch you in the mouth. You'll fail. But that's a benefit. Learn from those failures. Take them and run with them. I didn't get to where I am by being successful all the points in time. I didn't succeed at every job I did. I did very well at the job, but then I had hiccups where, either clashing with, different people, clashing with different environments and different situations. And I learned from that of how I adapt to it. What triggers me? What did I not do well? And how do I have to make sure I'm accounting for that? And then ultimately you find out where you want to be at some point in time, and then you can run with it. But don't just stick to one thing just because you think you have to. Whether that is a teacher, a parent, yourself, a friend, make sure you're doing what you want to do, and make sure you're being smart about it. Is it something I can do? Don't just go pick a major because that's what your friends are doing. Is it something that if you pick that major and graduate, you can make a living out of it? So figure it out, and have fun with it. The ultimate thing is 1, have fun. 2, learn from your mistakes, and 3, don't be afraid to take chances.
So far, so good. So let's jump into one of the topics we talked about, which was the economy. What affects mostly everyone in the United States of America today is how the economy is going. To give a little background, the way I view the economy, because everybody has different opinions. You have economists across the industry that talk through what they think is happening, what they think will happen, what their forecasts are. But I think some background. The economy was very cyclical for a long time, where you could see a very steady 7-year economic cycle where you would see sort of a downturn or a recession, once every 7 to 10 years. 2008 to 2010, what we call, the great downturn, really affected everything, where we haven't really seen that cycle come to fruition over the last 17 years. It's been kind of, slightly up and down, almost like a heartbeat, and not really like those steep peaks and valleys. Take away COVID, which, nobody can really account for that from a forecast perspective, a pandemic, something of that nature, which did have many, many impacts, which I'll talk about here in a second. Other than that, post 2010, it is really just kind of not really cyclical like it used to be. It's really kind of been hard to predict as well as it has been. And you have a lot of people who kind of struggle with that. They try to use the historical triggers and the historical trends to kind of predict what's going to happen down the road, and things really haven't come to fruition. Let's go back to last year at the end of 2024. The Fed decided to drop interest rates by 50 basis points. Typically, when you see that interest rate drop, it's in a state where the economy is going in a certain direction. You see other rates kind of aligned to it. The U.S. Treasury rate, the 10-year U.S. Treasury rate, jumped up 75 basis points, which really is atypical, because you really like to see a rate drop in the interest rates when the Fed lowers them, a subsequent lowering in those yields. On the flip side, the mortgage rates. Instead of mortgage rates dropping, mortgage rates actually went up 79 basis points, during that same time when we dropped interest rates 50 basis points. So the question will go, and I'm not going to take one side of the argument or the other, but the argument was that 50 basis point drop simply for political purposes and not the right time? Usually when you're dropping interest rates, there's lots of things you're trying to accomplish with it. Just like raising interest rates, the goal is to make money more expensive to borrow, and typically lowers a lot of the ability for smaller companies to borrow money, and in turn really increases unemployment rates. On the flip side, you're trying to lower rates, make the cost to do lower, so that way you can have more, hire more, and you see more people coming in and lowering the unemployment rate. And really, we haven't seen that align here in the last few rate drops. We just saw the Fed approve a 25 basis point rate drop. We are starting to see mortgage rates slightly lower. Where they're going, I think, is slow. I don't think you're going to see anything really come to fruition for another couple months. I think the Fed's already said 7 of the 12 directors have said they believe 2 more 25 basis point drops will be in effect between now and the end of 2025. I know in this last one, 11 of the 12 voted for the 25 basis point drop. The newest one that was just appointed voted for a 50 basis point drop, which I think most people were hoping for. The markets reacted well, a little bit of a stagnation there in the beginning of the announcement, but it did end up being up the day they announced it. I think mortgage rates will lag a little bit, with the concern at the end of the month in September 30th if there's going to be a shutdown of the government. I know the minority leader has indicated that without rollback on some of the Medicare programs, they're going to hold out, and there's a risk of the shutdown. So I think some of the impacts that we're hoping to see are going to be delayed. But mortgage rates will definitely be affected at some rate, but they are slow. We are seeing them lower. Taking a look this morning, I saw some rates on 30-year loans down to 6%. I saw some 15-year rates down in the 5% range, in the 5.5% range. So you are starting to see that come through. So we're hoping that sees more and more. There are a lot of people who have mortgages here in the last couple of years since 2022 who are looking to refi. A lot of people went into the 5/1 ARM loans or the 5/6 ARM loans, the adjustable rate mortgages, banking that when their ARM switches, the rates will be lower than they were when they took the loan. So they're really hoping here in the next year or so that rates are going to come down substantially. So I think a lot of the economy is riding on that. When you go back to 2008, the economy really tanked because of the housing market. You really saw a lot of struggling there, which had a lot of ramifications that really made a very, very severe recession. And then, you do see, on the flip side, COVID. COVID happened in 2020. And the economy really, for the first time in memory that I can see in the data, really fostered two separate economies. You would look at really the lower third of the income brackets really forced into a recession almost, where they received the stimulus, but most of that was spent. The upper third really took that stimulus. A lot of them are entrepreneurs. They received personal stimulus as well as small business stimulus. And you saw a tremendous amount of wealth buildup. A lot of those people did not use that money to stimulate the economy. They used it to pay down debt. They used it for savings. They were smart about their approach, where a lot of the lower income families really used it to spend, purchase, make their lives better than they were. And unfortunately, when things start to happen, inflation, fast forward to 21, 22, 23, that separation of the two upper end and lower end started to push further and further apart, because a lot of the upper end and middle part, even the middle section, that middle third, were able to really stem the inflation. They were able to absorb it. They were able to still live their lives day to day like they were used to. The upper end really stimulated by spending even more than they had in the past because they were set up very well from a savings and a personal debt perspective, where the bottom end started to see increases in groceries, increases in everyday goods, and their income really didn't change. And on top of that, the stimulus didn't really go to pay down debt. They still had their same debt, still had their same savings account, so they didn't really have anything to back into. So you really saw that difference in the economies, which happens today. And I think a lot of economists struggle with being able to predict where the overall U.S. economy is going because of the changes during 2020 and 2021. You also have a lot of talk about the tariffs, what's happening with the tariffs. You see a lot of things there getting a little bit more expensive. You see some things that haven't changed and a lot of the big players absorbing those costs. But there is a lot of tentativeness in the economy and economists on, is it just waiting and it's going to happen soon? So you are going to see a lot of slowness of recovery, slowness of impacts of rate drops, just because there's all this inability for everyone to get on the same page. And unfortunately, you always have two sides of the coin and people have different opinions. Usually you can come to a agreement somewhere in the middle, and it's been very tough over the last 3 years when it comes to the economy. Talking about the fun stuff, things such as cars have, started to be, you hear BMW and some other, the larger international manufacturers saying they're going to eat some of the cost from the tariffs if they're bringing in parts, especially. BMW's opened up a lot of factories in the U.S. To build the cars, which help them really avoid the tariffs, but a lot of the parts still come in through that function. Watches, especially big name brands, whether you're talking about Rolex, Omega, Patek Philippe, Audemars Piguet, they're all Switzerland, shipped watches. So tariffs are coming. I'm a big watch guy, love my watches. I've already talked to my authorized dealer that is Watches of Switzerland in Marlton, New Jersey. Shout out to Mitch out there who takes care of me all the time. I just got off the phone with him. Usually every year, on occasion, if we're having a good year from the business perspective, I always like to get a nice new watch once a year, and it's usually around Christmas time. an excuse when I go to shop for the wife to say I might as well get something for myself. So hopefully the wife doesn't watch this, which I'm sure she will, so she'll yell at me. But I ended up doing it earlier this year because, middle of October, all of those players are increasing their prices because of the tariffs. So getting in early is a big one. So trying to get in there early and knowing when things are going, reading the room, reading the environment, especially when you're talking about luxury goods, whether it's, international cars, like big price ticket cars of, six figures and above, or watches. When you're talking about watches in that 10,000 and above range, the tariffs are going to have somewhat of an effect on certain things here or there, and you just have to know where to look and where to go. So doing your research and understanding it. But bottom line on the mortgage side, I really view a lot of the people who need to refi and want to refi for those higher rate mortgages they booked in 2022, 2023, even in 24. I really view the rates aren't going to get to where they want it to be, which means 30-year loans back down in that 4 to 5% range. I would be, remiss if I said I think they're for sure going to happen next year. But I would say earliest would be sometime next year, maybe 2027. Again, a lot of uncertainty. I think it's going to depend on what Congress does with shutting down the government at the end of this month. If they can come to a bipartisan agreement to budget the government, I think we'll be in a much better shape for the future. But it's something you got to keep an eye on. So those are kind of my opinions. Again, strictly my opinions, so take them as they're worth. But I've been doing it long enough. I've been through many, many economic cycles, starting in banking in 1995, really, 1997 full time. Being through 4 or 5 different economic cycles, it's kind of understanding, and what you will hear from me a lot is understanding the art and the science. Anybody can get a set of data and do a forecast and an analysis. It's understanding how that applies to the real world. It's also a trick with marketing. You see a marketing of a different product online that's telling you, this is what's going to happen. This is how things are rolling. This is what the data is telling you. As a longtime data person, I can make the data tell me whatever I want it to tell. It's just how I structure the data, from what perspective I'm grabbing the data from, and it's really understanding how to blend the art with the science, and not just trusting the data as is. If someone gives you data, doesn't mean it's wrong, but it's all based on perception. It's all based on where the data is coming from. What's it include? What's it exclude? Where it's going? And again, that funnels into the economy as well. What's the data saying? Where is the data coming from? Is it all the U.S.? Is it only urban populations? Is it rural? Is it in certain aspects of the country? Is it in big cities? You see a lot of data coming from big cities: New York, L.A., Miami. Unfortunately, it's a little bit biased because it is a lower income a lot of times and higher income blended together. And you want to get more of that distribution of understanding the data. So make sure you do your research, make sure you understand it. Post in the comments if you have specific economic questions I can answer, or we can deep dive into and talk about further. But I think it'll be a fun time for everybody as we get into more topics. But make sure you post in there questions and topics you want to hear about. So we're looking forward to it. So one of the funnest things I get to do is, like I said, the watch side of it. I'm going to hopefully be able to get us into Watches of Switzerland when I go to pick up the new watch. Take a look at it so you can kind of take a look. It'll be fun. It's my first purchase from the company Jacob & Co. I think it'll be pretty cool. It's in their Epic X line. It's their white ceramic with a blue dial. But the great thing is Mitch, like I said, at Watches of Switzerland, is somebody you really should check out. If you don't, again, Marlton, New Jersey. But one of the things is he takes care of me all the time. In starting this podcast, I had a lot of people kind of jump in with me to kind of push me this way. One of my business partners keeps saying, I should do it, I should do it, I should do it. Some other people have kind of given me. But finally, I was able to partner with Poniac Productions, Devin on that side, who's a great guy. And he actually finally pushed me over the edge to get off my ass and do stuff. So when I talked to Mitch, he was able to kind of hook me up on the side with something else. So I want to get something for Devin that actually gave me for Devin something that I think he'll like, and it'll be a pretty cool thing for him to get, as we go through this journey together. So he's my partner in this way, and it'll be a lot of hard work on both our sides. So I want to thank Devin, and this will be from him, and we'll see. Maybe we'll do an opening too, in the episode. So looking forward to the journey.
I can't remember the last time I've ever been so surprised. All right.
All right, people, here we go. The big reveal, little unboxing for the first episode. Should be fun. I didn't wrap it, by the way. Mitch wrapped it for me.
I'm excited. I can say I can't remember the last time I was this surprised with something.
By the way, this is Devin.
He's the one that makes everything look good.
Oof. Hamilton. Oh. All right. Oh, man. A box inside a box.
Hopefully you didn't put another box in there.
Oh, wow.
I know you said you like the strap.
Yeah, I love the brown strap.
Yeah, I was going back and forth between the one with the date and the one without the date, but I figured the date one would be good.
Yeah.
Devin and I talked a lot about watches, and Hamilton was one that he really wanted. He has one specific to pick out, but I think that should be the one he gets to buy himself when he's ready. But this one is not as nice as the one he wants, but I think it's a pretty good one and fits kind of, call it 4 out of the 5 check marks that he likes. So, and I love watches. Watches are a big fun thing for me. You'll hear a lot of people say watches aren't investments, but some of them can be. But it's really the meaning of what they mean to you can be a good investment for yourself. Maybe not monetarily, but for the long term, it's something that gives back to you over time.
This is unbelievable, dude.
Yeah, brother.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So Hamilton. Hamilton watches are great. They've been around forever. Actually, I have a Hamilton watch that was my grandfather's that's back from the 1930s. It's a really great piece. You see a lot of people who really want to step up from, Casio or Timex or Invicta or a lot of those that are really nice watches, but they want to get to that next level. So really, Hamilton's a great one. It's an automatic. It has a date function, as you can see, at the 3 o'clock mark. And it is just a 24-hour, marker around the inside of the dial. Clean, very good. This could be a dress watch or it could be, an everyday watch. The brown strap. Devin and I have talked about it a lot. So, I have a rubber strap on mine. I tend to like the straps more so for everyday use because, the what they call the bracelets, the metal bands, sometimes, tend to get a little bit sweaty, a lot more sweaty throughout the day and become, you go like this and they start to kind of swish. With these, you can kind of set where you want them, and it's real sturdy. Leather band, it'll last forever. And Hamilton's one of those that is Swiss made. It'll be around for a long time, and it's tested and it's respected in the industry. So it'll be a fun one for him. So looking forward to seeing it on his wrist.
Too cool, man.
Yeah, brother.
Too cool. Wow. Hamilton is like the most the watch that's been used the most in any movies across time.
A lot of them,
that?
yeah. So entrepreneurship, what does it mean to me? What are my thoughts on it? I touched on it in the intro, but entrepreneurship is something that I've always thought about. When I was little, I used to, mow lawns, for the people, shovel snow. My mom used to do yard sales in the community, every twice a year, I think. I used to have all my extras of, save up my money to buy baseball cards. And you get duplicates, second baseball cards to try and make a set. I used to try and sell those at the yard sale. So always trying to figure out ways to do something on my own, which was fun. And then college comes and you got to kind of get into, the corporate world like I did. And that's kind of where you settled. But I always, had that itch in the back of my mind of liking to work for myself. I was always in the back of my mind, no matter what, had disagreements in my head with, some ways that the senior leadership would run the business, which always was like, I didn't have enough of a voice in many cases to be able to change it. And then once I did have the seniority at the executive level and the board level to be able to have those kind of decisions, we really got forced into bad timing that it was a time where everything was regulated in the banking industry. The big downturn just happened. I got into the senior executive positions, and there was no room to make decisions other than what you had to make from a regulatory perspective. So really never really got to feel that I could make the changes to a business like I wanted to. My most favorite things in business growing up through my career was going into new or evolving industries that the bank was trying to do, whether it's we're going in to start to do direct marketing and direct lending to dealerships on the auto side, or we're trying to spin off a part of the business at Citibank to sell it. Like those were always the most fun, that entrepreneurial feel inside of a corporate world. So when I left the bank to go start doing consulting, my mind wasn't fully, I'm going to make a living out of this. It was, let's see how it goes and go from there. And then I got the bug, and, that's where it's led me. But I truly don't believe my entrepreneurial success would have been anywhere near as it is now if I didn't work in that industry for a period of time. Did I need to work there all 25 years? No, maybe not. But I would have had to work there a pretty good amount of time to understand all of the intricacies and all of the things that kind of make you understand why things are being decided or how they're being decided, which makes it much more effective for me going into my clients and being able to speak at their level, having been in their seat before. So I mentioned we do a lot of work on the entrepreneurship side here at University of Delaware. It's actually where our office is located, just off campus, across from all the sports complexes, which is a lot of fun. But we've gotten to work with University of Delaware quite a bit. On the business side, we do a scholarship for the business analytics major, which is a lot of fun. Get a lot of good exposure there. We have a lot of students that work for us, not interns, but actually working for us during the school year and full-time over the summers. And they have an entrepreneurship school within the University of Delaware that we do a lot of work for. Dee Ridgway, who's one of my partners in the business and one of the original founders, he actually sits on the board of the Horn Entrepreneurship Program at University of Delaware. And we do a lot of work with them, pitch competitions, preparing them, being the investors they present to so they can practice, being mentors to those, who are trying to, make their pitches more desirable when they try to go in and pitch their ideas for new businesses. And I try to speak to all of them to the understanding of, do you understand the industry you're going into? You have a product that is going to work very well, which is great. And a lot of the products these students come up with are fantastic and incredible. But a lot of times they don't understand the business aspect of it, how a business runs, the day-to-day operations, any hurdles that would hurt them on their journey to try and get their product in market. So there's a lot of stuff we try to do to educate them of during school, maybe try to do an internship over the summer or try to get part-time work and in the industry that you want to build your business towards. That way you get kind of an inside look into what's going on. The biggest things in entrepreneurship that people don't understand is, less than 20% of businesses long-term really succeed for a long run from an entrepreneurial side for someone who's just coming out of college. There's a lot of success stories, which is what people focus on, and they chase the dream. Right. You see, a Facebook, or you see some of these smaller, AI startups that are very, very successful, but you're really seeing 1% of the market of people who are trying to do it. Are you prepared? Do you understand all of the aspects of not just the business environment you're going into, but how to run a business? We see a lot of the students who graduate and start their own business fail because they didn't know how to manage a payroll. They didn't know how to manage their resources. They didn't know how to manage inventory. They didn't know how to manage the day-to-day accounting and benefits that goes into hiring people. There's only so much you can do with 1099s in the long run because it is unstable when you have people moving in and out because they don't have a set W-2 benefits and employment. So you have to make sure you understand at the end of the day all the aspects if you want to be truly successful. Now, I'm not saying you can't be successful without all of that because it happens, but it's very, very rare. So we do try to impress upon people, and especially myself, when I talk to young people, especially even my kids. I have four children, 2 college age, 2 in high school. that what do you want to do with your life? Do you want to work for yourself? Do you want to work for someone else? What's your ambitions? And then how do you plan for it? Have a plan in place. I mentioned before, don't be afraid of failure. Those failures make you who you're going to be in the long run in your business. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, don't be afraid to fail here and there. Do your research, understand what you're doing, and make sure you have a plan in place, and make sure you have several plans. It's ironic that there's a chessboard here, and this just popped in my head because I was looking at the chessboard. But it is, thinking 3 or 4 moves ahead. If I go this route, what if this happens versus that? How do I react in both situations? Not just planning that everything's going to go as planned. Funding, how are you going to fund it? For me, I've mentioned that my wife had a very, very senior job, so it allowed me flexibility to fail, succeed, but figure out my own way with my own business, and find out if this is really what I wanted to do with my life. And it ended up being yes, but I never, ever could have done it without my wife being there to support us, to support me, to give me encouragement, but also stability. So make sure you understand that. You don't want to try and chase your dream, and then it doesn't work out, because, it's great to chase your dreams, but it doesn't always work out. Make sure you plan accordingly. Play chess, not checkers. Make sure you have a secondary plan. And if you don't, you could spend 10 years and, then you have to go get a real job in the corporate world. And are you prepared for it? Does your degree in college kind of foster that? What are your experiences that you can really rely upon? And do you need to start from the beginning, or do you have relationships that you've built up? So make sure you're smart about it. Plan accordingly, have plans for any situation that you can possibly work out. Learn from your mistakes, embrace your mistakes, embrace your failures, and learn from them. Don't look at them as like a hurdle or, something you want to forget about, like, oh, I failed there. Right? It's not the same thing. Someone gets fired. Well, learn from it. Why did you get fired? What did you do that really didn't work out well? That could be one of the greatest learning experiences. You take a look at some of the most successful people in the world. You can guarantee they've probably been fired from 1 or 2 jobs a lot of times, and they have been. Kevin O'Leary, Elon Musk. You talked to a lot of those guys of, what didn't work for them in the beginning and what they learned from it. People like that are great to listen to, because to be truly successful, you have to know what it means to fail. Because if you don't know what it means to fail, the first time something goes wrong, you don't know how to react. You don't know what to do, and you panic. And a lot of times when you panic, you make harsh and incorrect decisions. So, always have a plan in place, be mindful, learn from your mistakes, and go from there. And, if entrepreneurship and, starting your own business is what you want to do, don't let anybody stand in your way, but make sure that you're smart about how you're doing it. Don't just think that you're going to jump in, make this incredible, idea, concept, and expect that it's going to work. Because the people you have to sell it to might not believe in it and might not agree with how it would integrate and work for them. Some of the greatest products I've seen just don't work from a business perspective in certain verticals, certain industries, just because it won't interact correctly because of regulatory oversight, because of requirements and, certifications they have that'll be too much of a hurdle. You hear everybody trying to build all this stuff with artificial intelligence and try to sell it in. For example, we do a lot of work in the banking industry and have a lot of banking experience. Artificial intelligence is fun and great, but being that it's a self-learning application, it'll never work in certain applications within financial services because it's regulated. It will discriminate because certain categories of that's considered discrimination in the financial services world do perform in specific ways that are true separators. And unfortunately, if you go in with AI, it's going to find those and try to optimize your outcomes. So you have to be able to be advanced in understanding those hurdles, being able to code it into that environment. That's why most of what's out there that's called, artificial intelligence isn't AI. It's machine learning, right? It's guided, it's overseen, it's managed, right? It's careful. So you got to be understanding of what you're doing and be careful of what you're doing and understand the market you're going to. An example of, going from a entrepreneurship perspective of what works is I was trying to think about how to expand Predictive Analytics Group, PAG, outside of just what we started for originally in 2013, which was banking. It was trying to get into something different. And I was like, why not do something I really like and enjoy? That would be fun for me. So I said, sports betting was getting big, 2015, 2016. And I said, why don't I try to build a model? I have all this data. I have access to all this data. Why don't I try to build some models for some sports betting? Big ones like baseball, football, golf, the big ones that you had a lot of opportunity to bet. So that's what I did. I started building models on that side and figured out what worked, what didn't work, learned from some failures, of what made sense. And finally, one of them took off, and, to this day still post on a weekly basis. And, we outperform the Vegas lines, pretty heavily, 60 to 65%, for full season every year. And it's pretty fun. So it's a lot. It was a lot of work, but a lot of failures, a lot of failures and a lot of fun. So, that was something that really helped me kind of get into the entrepreneurship side.
In a footnote, I completely tanked and shit the bed on baseball, soccer, golf. Nothing worked. The only thing I really got to work was football, right? And learned that it was, building the model, having a lot of fun with it, but adding that art with the science and understanding the whole realm of how it works, from the kickoff to the final whistle, right? It was figuring that out along the way. And I didn't have as much in that because there's so much volatility with baseball. 162 games wasn't there. Golf, one person, it's not a team. So it was very difficult to pick winners, right? And that was what my models were doing, picking winners. Since then, if I had to go back and do it, I'd learn from my mistakes and just who's likely to hit the top 10, who's likely to hit the top 5. I wouldn't do it the same way, but that failed. Soccer, I just didn't have enough experience and knowledge about overall MLS or, Champions League soccer to be effective of knowing when the model was giving me BS. Whereas at football or baseball, I could. So really where it settled was an NFL, model. And it's been 7 years and it's running strong. And, we have a lot of people subscribe to our weekly newsletter during the season. So that's was a fun thing of learning from a lot of mistakes. Even the NFL model took 3 or 4 iterations before it was worth anything. And now today it's a fun thing that we do. We don't sell it by any means, but we do post it and do a distribution. And it's a fun way to show our capabilities from the analytical perspective. But it's pretty funny because there's a lot of failures. And it was a lot of my time on the weekends and nights that was just like, my wife would be like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm trying to make this damn model work. She's like, give it up. You're useless. Stick to banking. But I didn't. I learned from my mistakes, and it ends up working pretty good. And it ends up being a nice little income on the side that helps pay for my watches.
So that's my kind of take on entrepreneurship. We'll dig in deeper as we go along and we have more podcasts, but I love hearing successful stories. I love hearing, I hate to say failures. I love hearing failures, but I love hearing about successes built off of failure. So what did you fail in and how did that help you be successful in the future? So, put some notes in the comments, some topics you'd like to hear about that we can talk about. I'll try to bring in some entrepreneurs that I know that have been successful. I've had some hurdles along the way and how they've overcome them. And I think it'll be a fun time to kind of hear about that if you're interested. But again, comment, subscribe, and let us know, is it something you enjoy hearing about or is it, something you don't? So it'll be good to hear about that and get some feedback and some ideas of what next, what's the next topic. But, on to the next topic.